Welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the stories, experience, and challenges that shape us into who we have become. Our today's guest is Isaac, a retired comedian and memor a memoirist, whose life took an unexpected turn when he discovered a 50 that has been adopted, leading him to a powerful journey to uncover his true identity. It's really a pleasure and honor to have you on the show,
Thank you
Isaac.
very much. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. So, Isaac, what were some of the moments or challenges that shape you into who you have become today?
Well, I thought that I knew who I was for 50 plus years. I grew up as an only child in New York. I got married, I had a son, and everything was going according to plan. And then just after COVID, I got a call from my mother's oncologist, her cancer doctor, who accidentally informed me that I was adopted, which
Hmm.
I had no clue, was not expecting. And if anything, I thought the doctor was mistaken because my mom and dad both had dementia. And they both, especially my mom, was telling different doctors different stories about what surgeries she had, about what sicknesses, what symptoms. And so she never gave anyone a straight answer. So when this doctor told me I was adopted, I thought it was the dementia talking. Didn't take it very seriously. And I emailed an aunt of mine to let her know how mom's dementia was progressing, with such a crazy story. And that aunt emailed me back with a message that began with, I always wanted to tell you. So, here we are half century into my life, and I'm learning I am not the person that I thought I was.
Hmm.
So that's, my chapter two, that episode is kind of what has made me.
Wow, that was. I mean, just why you just shared that story is a whole lot of emotion. It's running through my mind. I'm like, what should I feel? What should I feel different? It's really a whole lot, and I don't even know what to say. So you find out that your entire family knew except you.
Yes.
How did you process that reality, especially with your parents unable to fully explain it into their heads?
At first, it was tough. Now, I should also preface by saying that not only were my parents sick, but my father was dying. And we
Mm.
found out, and from the moment that I found out, he passed away about 2.5, 3 weeks later.
Oh,
And I never told him that I knew. With everything, I was having a hard time processing all of it. I couldn't, you know, deal with my parents' illness, my mom's sickness because the dementia, she had cancer again, my father passing away, finding this out, and then finding out that everyone knew. I wasn't angry. I think finding something like this out at the age that I did is different than finding out,
yeah,
let's say,
in your
when you're
20s.
20. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my parents kind of swore everyone to secrecy, which is amazing. I don't know how we went to any wedding or family function, and trust that as the evening went on and people had a little bit of drink, that no one would
Yeah.
let it slip. But they didn't. And I think a lot of my relatives, my cousins especially, who were around the same age as me, felt a little bit guilty about not telling me. Yeah. And I think they thought I was going to be mad that that they didn't. And I explained to them that it really, it wasn't their responsibility to tell me.
Yeah.
It wasn't their place. But at the same time, it kind of made me question my relationship with everybody. I did have someone who, when they finally, admitted to me that they knew, they said to me, I knew and I always wanted to, make sure that we give you a little extra love, which I understand where they were coming from, and I know their heart was in the right place, but it makes me question, say, all right, so our relationship is based on a secret, first and foremost,
Yeah.
and it's everything from there, and you're spending a lot of energy telling me something, so is it based on who I am and my personality, or is it that I am the adopted child of your uncle, so you got to be cool. So it was tough, and it took a little while for them to realize that I wasn't angry and they shouldn't feel guilty, and there was no resentment, and we're all good, and
Yeah.
so and that was part of the reason I ended up writing my book, my memoir, was to almost publicly let them know that, I get it. You were being loyal to my parents. This is what they expected for you. Because I found out later on, over the years, several family friends kind of dropped out of sight. They'd be in our lives, pretty regularly for a while, and then all of a sudden, nothing, without explanation, just dropped. And what I found out was that some of them came to my parents and said, you ought to tell him. And whether my parents just didn't want to be told what to do, or if they thought that these folks were a threat to actually,
Yeah.
spill the beans, they cut them out of their lives. And that's crazy. That is really that's something else. Again, writing the book is almost reaching out to some of these folks and going,
Yeah.
if you want to touch base with me and catch up, let's do it.
Yeah.
They're people I genuinely miss and would love to find out how they're doing.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So looking back, were there any signs or moments that made you suspect something wasn't adding up?
Never. That's the amazing thing. I'm like, am I just that blind and myope? I try to figure out, because my wife, who really was unbelievable the way she helped me out with all this, not processing and looking for my birth family. She said the same thing. Were there any red flags there? My parents, they didn't like to talk about family. Like when my son was young, he was putting together a family tree in school. And my wife's family was very gracious and giving to him and letting him know about grandparents and great grandparents, uncles. He had this whole thing filled out. And when we went to my mom and said, hey, Nick's doing this family thing, he'd really like to get some information. And her answer was, what? No. And you would think that would be a red flag, but that's just how she was with everything.
Oh,
If she didn't want to talk about something, she cut you off, and that was the end of the conversation. But like later on, you look back and you go, oh, that's kind of weird. Like my wife said, you never thought it was weird that your mom never had any pictures of her pregnant with you. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Had I suspected something, maybe I would have looked for that sort of thing. But
yeah.
I didn't. So no, I had there was and I was an only child. I never picked up on clues, and they were very persistent when it came to telling me where certain traits came from. Like my mom, oh, you get your eyes from your grandfather. Oh, you get your height from this one. Oh, you have the same. Like
Wow.
like looking back, I realized, wow, they really hit that pretty hard. But as I was growing up, it was just okay, okay, and everyone they referenced was a dead relative that I couldn't follow up on.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's weird because all these things I didn't have in, like with my parents, I didn't have the same talents or interests or skills. I went into comedy. I became a drummer at a very early age. I've been playing my drums my whole. My parents are not musical, and as far as them having a sense of humor, that's very questionable. So,
Yeah.
it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess I should have seen it.
I think it's difficult to see, being that you might just think maybe I'm just the outliers among them. And I think it's the fact that you were very low of while being in there. There was no more like segregation or in things about, yeah. That was why you couldn't more like get to, if not, if there were any outer of maltreatment or discrimination, you would have been able to kind of tell. But being that none of those actually happened or true. So you can't even, it's not even a thing, let alone to even start checking it out.
No,
Yeah.
no idea. No
Wow.
idea.
Wow. Wow. What were some of the turning points in your search for the truth?
Well, the biggest one right out of the gate, I did 23andMe, I did Ancestry.com, and they came back with 1,000 fifth cousins. Just as far as the eye could see, I saw distant relatives, but nothing close enough that it was like, oh, I was
Yeah.
hoping I was going to do it. And here's your brother. I initially found a woman who the software identified as a cousin, that my wife is looking at it going, no, the percentage is too high for a DNA match. And her age, I think she's an aunt. So I reached out to this woman through Facebook Messenger, and it was her daughter who got back to me. And I was very cryptic about it. I didn't come right
Yeah.
out and say, I think you're my aunt. I said, Ancestry seems to think we're related. I have a couple of questions if you don't mind. I'd love to chat. And her daughter initially said, oh, Yeah, I'm sure my mom would love to speak with you. This will be great. And then 3 days later, I got a second message saying she doesn't want to connect. Sorry, best of luck. And I just went, oh, there's probably a story there. Um, so using that woman's name, it was my sister-in-law who found an obituary from 1998
Hmm.
from a man named Paul. And we read the obituary, and at the very bottom, there was a picture of Paul. And when I tell you that that picture was the spinning image of my son, I mean, it was like they were twins. It was like a
Wow.
clone. So I guess, I guess that's my dad. And from that, from that obituary, I found a sister that I did not know I had. Actually, technically half sister. We both, Paul is our dad, and my half sister Molly is amazing. You know, I've been an only child my whole life, and suddenly I'm a brother. It was awesome. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting to meet her, and then she and her mom, so Paul's wife, helped me in my search for my birth mom. Paul's wife knew my birth mom, and she was able to give me her name. And my birth mom's name is legitimately Mary Smith. She has the most common name on the planet, Mary Smith. So I was thinking that chances of finding this woman are slim to none, and I just hope that, you know, it's like finding a sister, you know, that's I'm way ahead of the game. You know, if this is all I find, then this is awesome.
Yeah.
And then we begin to search for Mary Smith, and that's why we named the book "Finding Mary Smith." Yeah,
Good.
yeah,
Yeah.
that came out last week. So, that was the first couple of really major events. But you know, for anyone who's listening, who's going through this, no two stories are the same. There's no, way to, step one, step two, step three. There's your family.
Yeah.
I, in doing the research online, there are so many heartbreaking stories of people who are in similar situations to me who couldn't find anybody, or they found someone and they didn't want to connect, or they weren't as decent, nice, whatever circumstance, it wasn't everything they dreamt of. And when I was writing the book, people would say, "Well, this is great. This is going to give people a lot of hope." And I said, hope, it does give people a lot of hope, but at the same time, you know, I don't want to give them false hope, and I don't, because the Oscars were the other night. So you always get someone going up there to get the Oscar and going, "See, dreams do come true." Like, no, your dream came true.
Yeah. Came true.
There's four other people sitting in the seats who had the same dream.
Yeah.
It didn't come through for them. You know, but
Yeah.
it
That's
was
true.
a very unlikely journey that took place for me. At every turn, there was another plot twist that I did not see coming.
So meeting your birth mom, must have been emotional. What was the experience like, and how did it reshape your understanding of family?
Yeah, it was amazing. Because, like I said,
Mm.
I didn't I didn't think I was going to find her. The odds were stacked against me. Because number one, her name is Mary Smith. Number two, after I found my sister, I discovered that my adoption was a gray market adoption, which means that everything was falsified under the table. All the documentation from my adoption papers was all lies, for better way. But like for instance, my adoption papers said that my father passed away, my birth father passed away before I was born. But like I said, Paul didn't pass away until 1998. So like, everything that was documented on
Mm.
there, I was going by fake clues. But luckily for me, talk about nature versus nurture. Like I said, my parents weren't musically inclined the way I am, and weren't into entertainment the way I am. Turns out my mom was.
Yeah.
Mary Smith was a folk singer in New York in the late 60s, early 70s, and she won a music competition that was like American Idol back then. It was called Sound of Youth USA. And, she won in Michigan and the regionals and in the finals. It was televised across the country, and she won the whole thing.
Mm.
And that was really the key to finding her, because there were so many articles written about her and interviews that were done that it was just a matter of, okay, follow the leads. And it was, so to answer your question about meeting her, it was surreal, because for about 8 months, I was doing all this research into her and reading all this, all these articles, interviews. all these things. I was getting to know her and fall in love with, what was essentially,
Yeah.
this 19-year-old girl, and like getting to meet her in person now, it's my mom. It blew my mind. The first time, our first Zoom meeting, like you and I talking, the very first thing I said to her, it's like, I don't know you, but I love you. You gave me life. My parents gave me a life, but you gave me life. It was amazing. It was, I'm so blessed and so fortunate, that, to find her, to meet her, to have the relationship that I have with her. Because, like everyone was saying all along this journey, you have to write a book, you have to write a book, you have to write a book. And I said, not unless I find her, she's okay. And, thank God she was.
Yeah, amazing. Wow, this is really, really, really amazing. A whole lot of, yeah, a whole lot being that you're able to persevere and keep searching until you get to see it. Yeah, it's a whole lot. Yeah. So your memoir share this journey openly. What motivated you to tell your stories, and what do you hope people take away from it?
Well, from what people telling me who are reading it now, it's really serving three purposes. Because the beginning part is dealing with, living with, my folks with dementia, and the day to day, dealing with that, and then how to handle it, how to make sure things are in order. Because as an only child, it kind of fell on me to make sure that all the legal paperwork and everything was in place to take care of them, to make sure they
Yeah.
were okay. The second part, it really is, the journey, was the search, was how I did it, who helped me out. It's a story that could only happen when it happened. Like New York was very strict with, you couldn't get your pre-adoption birth certificate in New York before a few years ago. And you couldn't do DNA tests through the mail in New York around the same time. So had I found out I was adopted 10 years ago, I would never have found her. And then a couple of years later, some of the folks who gave me information, some of the clues that helped me find her, have since passed away.
Mm,
So it's like I had a very narrow window for this to
yeah.
happen, and it happened. So that's kind of a big takeaway, And we were talking about before, finding out when you're 50 versus 20. It's kind
Yeah.
of the same thing with, knocking on someone's door, going, "Hey, I think you're my mom."
Yeah.
When you're 19 versus when you're 52 and you have a family of your own and a life of your own, and I'm not really looking for anything from you. I'm not coming to you, go, "Why did you abandon me?" It was nothing like that. It's all about gratitude. I think too, there were a lot of stories I was reading that, it's like, this has a happy ending. This ended well. This is good. Because we were talking about identity. There are so many stories about people who found something like this out.
Yeah.
For me, I was convinced, I was told, supposedly, I was 75% Russian, 25% English. Okay. It really didn't define me. There weren't Russian flags around my house. I've never been to Russia. I've never felt Russian. Okay. For me, my identity, at least at this point in my life, has been as a husband and as a dad and as a comedian and a teacher. And unfortunately, COVID took away the comedy and the teaching. The adoption didn't do that. So, the other stuff was like, okay, let's move on from here.
Yeah.
I was fortunate in that respect.
Yeah,
So,
amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Isaac. So, lastly, for anyone listening now who might be dealing with hidden family truth or identity question, what is one message you want them to leave with?
you're not alone.
Hmm.
The internet, for all its faults, there are groups out there that you can join with people who are going through the exact same thing as you,
Yeah,
who understand. Because, sometimes telling this to someone who isn't going through it, they don't quite get it. Well, you have your parents, and that's good enough. Don't be
yeah,
ungrateful, or it's more than that. It's deeper than that, and I get it. So if you don't have folks around you who are understanding, there are people online. Heck, you could reach out to me and drop me an email, and I'll try and put you in touch with folks who deal with this every day. But you are not alone.
yeah, amazing. This is really reassuring. Thank you so much, Isaac. So, Isaac, from all things who love, how can they reach out to you and where is the best platform?
If you go to alisaacs.com, that's ALISAACS memoiristcs.com. You can find information about me. You can find my email address. If you want to buy the book, it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and other retailers. But if you click on the website, you can email me, and I'm always available to talk.
Yeah, thank you so much, Isaac. Definitely the link is going to be on the show notes for my audience to easily reach out. Yeah, thank you. Your story just reminds us that it is never too late to discover the truth about who we are, and that even in the face of long-held secrets, healing and understanding are possible. For my audience, you can connect with Isaac looking at the show notes. This has been the Making of Me podcast, where every story is reviewed a moment that shape our life and redefine our identity. It's really a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show, Isaac.
Thank you so much. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.